Hello, welcome to Rough Cut Film Review. This is a review of Fast and Furious 6. And yes, they have made it to 6. Many years ago I saw the first Fast and Furious film, didn't think anything of it, and as a consequence I've missed 2 through 5. If I'm completely honest, I didn't want to see 6. I wanted to see Iron Man 3, but the cinema timings didn't work because I had to see Star Trek in the same day, so I ended up seeing this rather than sitting in the cinema lobby for a few hours. There we are. So once I got into the actual screen, I did try and be as fair as possible about this. The opening credits are basically a pop video featuring the Fast and the Furious crew doing stuff. So they're driving, they're shooting, they're posing for the camera while looking cool, while some very, very loud rap music plays over the top of this. And I think, there we are. It's directed by Justin Lin, who's an old hand at these sorts of films, and is written by his old chums from previous Fast and Furious films. Nothing of any interest whatsoever. So it's the same old standard cast from this franchise. Vin Diesel with an inexplicable performance. He seems to think that cool means that no one can understand you. Paul Walker, he's back. He was in the first one. He's handsome, but my word, he can't act. Michelle Rodriguez, she's the sort of rough one you get. She's, moderately attractive, but you think she might be in a fight at some point, or she might have a venereal disease. Either way, she's the sort of, slightly rough around the edges girl you get for this kind of stuff. That's why she's always in things like SWAT. So, she's always a sort of space marine or something. If anyone can think of a good film that she's been in, I'd like to hear it. I can't even be bothered to look it up myself. Dwayne Johnson, he's a wrestler who's an absolute monster of a man. I actually sort of quite like him, but in this, all he ever does is beat people up. That's all he ever does. That's what police work is. It's just beating people up. His assistant is Gina Carano, who I think really will be a proper action star. I think she's great. She was fantastic in Haywire, and she's one of the best things in this. Jason Statham, who again I like very much, has a tiny performance here, but spoiler alert, he's promising that he'll be in the 7th film. Ooh, how exciting. So plot-wise, for what there is, there's an international team, or family as they keep referring to themselves, of international criminals who have made more money than anyone else on the planet, clearly in the previous films, and they have more money than sense. They have an IT guy, they have a cool black guy, they have a kung fu fighting Asian guy who's got a hot girlfriend. It's just sort of a 13-year-old's fantasy, that might wear a baseball cap back to front and have baggy jeans on, that kind of thing. The team are brought in by Dwayne Johnson's Interpol agent to stop a rogue SAS man and his team from gaining a weapon worth billions. There's plenty of James Bond style jet setting around the world, but much of the film takes place in London, and we see the number 4 bus all over the city. So if you go and see this film, despite my recommendation, look out for the number 4 bus. You see it about 5 times. The team spend the film essentially with looking for excuses to beat people up, drive cars, shoot at things. That's pretty much it. The repartee between the guys is absolutely pathetic. I mean, it's at the same sort of level as The Expendables 2. It's really, really feeble. This film really is the victim of its own success to a certain extent, in that they've constantly been having to up the ante, because this sort of film, it's sold on its explosions, its car chases. It's got to be more. It's got to be more than its competitors. It's got to be more than the previous one. And so now we're at the 6th film. It's just utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous, beyond all sorts of semblance of what might be possibly feasible. The attempt of humour here is to the level of, two of them go to an incredibly lavish sports car sale on the Thames, and of course there's this cliched snob who goes, "You two buy your dress, you can't afford to be here, finish your champagne and then please leave." So then the 2 guys proceed to buy all the sports cars to show, to teach the salesman some sort of lesson, although he's going to get an awful lot of commission on that. And then they proceed to take his watch and strip him naked kind of thing, so he leaves in his pants pretty much. And I can maybe imagine a 13-year-old going, "Wow, those guys are so cool," but really, is anyone else going to find that funny? I mean, that's what passes for the humour in this film. It's just, come on, it's pathetic, really, let's be honest. It is one of the most absurd plots I've ever seen, and as I said, it's a consequence of them constantly having to up the ante. So clearly in the films, the robberies they've done, they've had to be more and more and more. So I'm not even going to bother to try and explain the plot. It's so utterly ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense at all. The fight scenes involving Gina Carano in particular are well choreographed in places on the plus side. I'm thinking of a particular fight scene which was on the tube, but in all honesty, the director isn't competent enough to actually film it properly, so we can't really see what's happening. I can just about work out there's a good fight going on, but we can't can't really see it properly. How does an illegal street racer type beat up the top SAS guy in a fair fight? How can you catch a speeding tank in a sports car that's firing shells at them? How can you stop a plane on the runway with sports cars? Basically, every problem in life can be answered in this film with a sports car. The baddie as well has what is basically the Batmobile as his car. I mean, it's just pathetic, really, with a ramp on it, so other cars go up the ramp, or he can flip other cars like he's in Robot Wars. The team, any kind of problem, they beat their way through it. Beat people up, drive cars. These solve all the problems in life. Spoiler alert, toward the end, some of the family get, kidnapped kind of thing. And they resolve that just by sort of being belligerent. That's the way to go. Being belligerent and saying, we're a family, gets them through absolutely everything. Vin Diesel's character at the beginning is married to, a Brazilian model, essentially. And she's clearly obsessed with him. And yet he suspects that his ex-wife, who was apparently murdered in one of the previous films, because we see that again, she might be still alive. That sort of happens in the first reel. So the Brazilian current wife just goes, well, to be honest, you can marry her, that's all right. And then she disappears all through the film until the end, where she goes, yeah, that's fine, you can take my husband. I don't mind about that. And so the Michelle Rodriguez's character, and this was one of the worst bits for me, she'd lost her memory when she was sort of killed by some cartel types. She completely lost her memory. So the baddie had recruited her straight away into his evil, nefarious scheme. But he knows exactly who she is. He knows that she was married to the head of the good guys. But he's fine with that, So the fact that we see her, changing sides is completely given. And he just carries on, He's supposed to be this unstoppable, guy in every which way. He's, they've gone for that. He's perfect. He's absolutely perfect. And then he just makes absurd decisions like, oh, well, I know she was married to Vin Diesel's character, who's not like this, but she won't betray me. We're casual acquaintances. That'd be ridiculous. This whole film's just terrible, really is. Anyway, that'll do. Kind regards, Christopher Thomas.